Psalms 78. This is a long one, people, so bear with me if I make mistakes. Understanding for Asaph. Attend, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter propositions from the beginning. How great things have we heard and known, and our fathers have told us. They have not been hidden from their children in another generation, declaring the praise of the Lord and his powers and his wonders which he hath done. And he set up a testimony in Jacob and made a law in Israel, how great things he commanded our fathers, that they shall make the same known to their children, that another generation may know them, the children that shall be born and shall rise up and declare them to their children, that they may put their hope in God and may not forget the works of God, and may seek his commandments, that they may not become like their fathers, a perverse and expirating. Hold on just a moment. I gotta look this up. Hold on. Exasperating generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful to God. The sons of Ephraim, who bend and shoot with the bow, they have turned their back. They have turned back in the days of battle. They kept not the covenant of God, and in his laws they would not walk. And they forgot his benefits and his wonders that he had shown them. Wonderful things did he do in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, and the fields of Tanis. He divided the sea and brought them through, and he made the waters to stand as in a vessel. And he conducted them with a cloud by day, and all the night with a light of blank, I guess. He struck the rock in the wilderness and gave them to drink as out of the great deep, which he was supposed to speak to it, not strike it. He brought forth water out of the rock and made streams run down as rivers. And they added yet more sin against him. They provoked the Most High to wrath in the place without water. What did that Christian say? Where's the Most High? Where are you getting that from? Where have you read that? Well, I guess you ain't never read Psalms. And they tempted God in their hearts by asking meat for their desire. And they spoke ill. Ooh, that's a bad move of God. Man. They said, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Because he struck the rock, right? Because he wasn't supposed to do it. He was supposed to speak to it. Because he struck the rock and the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he also give bread or provide a table for his people? Therefore the Lord heard and was angry, and a fire was kindled against Jacob, and wrath came up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. Well, they still don't. They trust in Jesus' salvation. And he had commanded the clouds from above, and he had opened the doors of heaven, and he rained down manna upon them to eat, and he gave them the bread of heaven. Man ate the bread of angels, and he sent them provisions in abundance. He removed the south wind from heaven, and by his power brought in the southwest wind. And he rained upon them flesh as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea. And they fell in the midst of their camp round about their pavilions. So they did eat, and they were filled exceedingly, and he gave them their desire. They were not defrauded of that which they craved, as yet their meat was in their mouth. And the wrath of God came upon them, and he saw the fat ones among them, and brought down the chosen man of Israel. And all these things they sinned still, and they believed not for his wondrous works. And their days were consumed in vanity, and their years in haste. When he slew them, then they saw him, and they returned and came to him early in the morning. See, that's one of the things I always know about the psalm. It's always the praise early in the morning or late at night. And they remembered that God was their helper, and the Most High God their Redeemer. And they loved him with their mouth. That's a bad sign, right? It should be their heart and mind first. And with their tongues they lied unto him. Ooh, like he doesn't know. Man. But their heart was not right with him. See, that's what I'm saying. Their heart's supposed to be first. Because I noticed something. When those people always talk about, mixed relationships, and the Black Hebrew Israelites, when I say those people, when they were bringing that, and I was reading along with them, and they were pointing out the verse, they went right to the verse where they start listing the women that King Solomon was not supposed to be with. And they skipped over the Egyptian, or they mentioned the Egyptian, that's what it was. But and that's what made me stop. And I'm like, wait a minute. But the Egyptian's supposed to look like us, right? Because Moses couldn't be told apart from the Egyptian. And I was thinking to myself, and there was another part. I actually remember the pastor always said, read the verse before and read the verse after. So I went back and read it before and after, and it was not about the women that he didn't want them to be with. He tells you in the verse before and the verse after that if Solomon got with these women, they would turn his heart away from him. And that's when I've always realized it's the heart and mind first. So, just think about that. It's almost a dead giveaway. When it's the mouth and lips, that's that paying lip service stuff, right? But when it's the heart first, that's when you know where the seriousness is. But their heart was not right with him, nor were they counted faithful in his covenant. But he is merciful and will forgive their sins. The only one that can. And will not destroy them. And many a times did he turn away his anger, and did not kindle all his wrath. And he remembered that they are flesh, a wind that goeth and returneth not. How often did they provoke him in the desert, and move him to wrath in the place without water? And they turned back and tempted God, and tempted God. One moment. And grieved the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, and the day that he redeemed them from the hand of him that afflicted them. How he brought his signs in Egypt, and his wonders in the fields of Tanis. And he turned their rivers into blood, and their showers that they may not drink. He sent amongst them diverse sores of fleas, which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. And he gave up their fruits to the beast, and their labors to the locusts. And he destroyed their vineyards with hail, and their mulberry trees with hurlfrost, I think it is. Which I thought the mulberry tree is interesting because I try to find where it's indigenous to, and all they want to give me is where it's native to. So I don't know how to word that to get the right answer. But I mean, it's in America, it's in Mexico. And you see a lot of this. I keep thinking that this land, the land without water, is that border of, is that portion of the western part of the United States that crosses into Mexico, right? Where you read in that book, what's the book, Lex? Mystery of the Mexican Pyramids, where it talks about the, was it the cocoa leaf? Or I think it was, I might be wrong leaf, but the one where they had to grind up and turn it into a tea, and they would drink it, and they used that to cross the desert. It would help them for like 3 days if they drank it into a tea and they wouldn't have to eat. Or even Death Valley. I mean, I'm just saying, some of this sounds familiar, but I mean, my mind's just speculating. But, oops, there we go. Let's see. And he gave up their cattle to the hail, and their stock to the fire. And he sent upon them the wrath of his indignation and wrath and trouble, which he sent by evil angels. Let's see. He made a way for a path to his anger. He spared not their souls from death, and their cattle he shut up in death. And he killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, the first fruits of all their labor, in the in the tabernacles of Cham. Now, I want to show you this real quick, right? Tabernacles of Cham. I want to show you this. Look at Cham dance. Now, this is supposed to be in India. Hold on, let's see. There we go. Now, tell me, they're not playing around. That's supposed to be an afro on his head, right? And I remember there was the drawings on the walls of, was it Kumar versus Cham, where they're battling in a ship. It's supposed to be on some of the caves or temples in India. Oh, and you think about it, how wicked they were to try to play that whole game that, we are Ham, it was mostly promoted by the Christian church, especially the Mormon church, right? That black people are the children of Ham. And here it is that Cham is depicted in India as being a red, think about it, right? The red man with an afro. It's just a thought, I thought it was interesting when I ran across this, because I seen his, like I said, Cham written on the caves or on the temples in India. So we'll get back to the Bible. And he took away his own people as sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he brought them out in a hope, and they feared not. and the sea overwhelmed their enemies. And he brought them into the mountains of his sanctuary, the mountain which his right hand had purchased. And he cast out the Gentiles before them, and by lots divided to them their land by a line of distribution. Let's see here. And he made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tabernacles. Yet they tempted and provoked the Most High, and they kept not the testimonies. And they turned away and kept not the covenant, even like their fathers, even like their fathers, they were turned aside as a crooked bow. They provoked him to anger on their hills, and moved him to jealousy with their graven things. God heard and despised them, and he rebuked Israel exceedingly, as it were to nothing. And he reduced Israel exceedingly, as it were to nothing. I knew I read that wrong. Sorry about that. And he put away the tabernacle of Sol. How was that pronounced? I didn't read that right. I told you this was been a long one. I would make mistakes. Silo. Wow. And let's start all over again. And he put away the tabernacle of Silo, his tabernacle, where he dwelt among them. And he delivered their strength into captivity, and their beauty into the hands of the enemy. And he shut up his people under the sword, and he despised his inheritance. And that's what I'm always saying, because we read in the Psalms, our children are the inheritance of the Most High, right? Every generation is supposed to be his inheritance. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not lamented. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows did not mourn. And the Lord was awakened as one out of sleep, and like a mighty man that hath been I'm gonna mess this one up. Hold on.
Surfeited.
I don't know. Surfeited. What does that mean? Someone that desires no more of something. Overfilled. Okay. All right. So one that is let's see right there. And like a mighty man that has been overfilled with wine. All right, or surfeited with wine. And he smote his enemies on the higher parts. He put them to an everlasting reproach. And he rejected the tabernacle of Joseph. Oh my gosh, man. And he chose not the tribe of Ephraim, but he chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built his sanctuary as of unicorns, right? And the land which he founded forever. And he chose his servant David and took him from the hosts of sheep, of sheep. He brought him from following the Yules? Ewes. Yeah, I almost had it. Ewes, great with youth, to feed Jacob, his servant, and Israel, his inheritance. And he fed them in the innocence of his heart, and conducted them by the skillfulness of his hands.